This time on Rad Rat Video, we're talking about 720. Welcome to Rad Rat Video, where you can learn something new about skateboarding 3 times a week, from trick histories, to how to do tricks on the shred school, to catching up with your favorite old pros and retro rippers, to watching old game reviews like this one. So this is 720. The original arcade version came out in 1986 and was apparently really good because even Tony Hawk liked it.
720 by Atari, it's pretty hot.
But I didn't have access to the arcade version. I also didn't get the NES version. What I got was the Game Boy Color version. And it is so bad that I don't even want to try the other ones. It's just, I'll show you. When you first start out, you're just this tiny little sprite on screen. This is what it looks like on an actual Game Boy. The character is tiny, and it's really hard to see what direction you're going. And that really matters because you can't push switch. So if you land backward, you either do a half cab and keep going, or you push, which makes you change directions. But it's so much more important than that. I'll talk about the events soon, but they all rely on precision and exact timing. If you can't even tell what direction you're facing, it gets frustrating real fast. You're also required to spin in the air to get points, and that's almost impossible. I'm sure the arcade version was pretty good and a lot more playable, but this is just a mess. And also keep in mind, this is a Game Boy Advance SP, which has a backlight. The original Game Boy and Game Boy Color did not. So this would basically just be a smudge on the screen, and I have no idea what you would even do with it. So you start the game and you can skate around the town. The controls are really simple. Left and right will turn your character left and right, A will ollie, and B will push. You can ride around, ollie over stuff. Sometimes you get points, but I can't tell you exactly how to earn points. I don't get how the system works no matter how hard I try. You can ollie over a line on the screen and get a couple hundred points, or you can throw a 360 over something and get nothing at all. Even after beating the game, I cannot explain how the scoring works. And from what I can tell, it's just completely random. That sucks because of how important the score is. But just don't go too crazy right when you first start. You'll just keep dying over and over. Sometimes you get lucky and wait, did I just get killed by a pink tumbleweed? What is going on in this game? All right, let's continue and let's try again. Okay, it says get to a skate park. So here I am in a skate park. No, still brutally murdered by Kirby again. At this point, I just had to take a break from the game and do some research on how it actually works. So I got the cartridge-only version for $1 on eBay, so I didn't get the manual or anything, but I found 720zone.com, which is all about the arcade version, but all the info it had translated to this version, and I finally started to understand what to do with the game. So there are a few things you have to know here. These are only here to get points if you don't have enough to get into the events. But the idea here is to go around and complete the events and use that money to buy new equipment. When you finish all the events, you start over and everything gets harder, classic arcade style. But to get into the events, you need to have points to buy tickets. This is only a problem if you mess up an event because there's no retrying. You'll just get stuck trying to score points outside with Fat Boo here trying to murder you for no apparent reason. And if he does, you get a few continues, but I bet this is just where you put in an extra quarter in the arcade version. So what I did is I found this map from the arcade version online and I left it up on my computer while I played. And it helped a lot because you don't really have time to waste going from event to event. As you can see, the arcade map actually had helpful signs and stuff that just weren't possible on the Game Boy. Let's take a look at these events, since they're the whole point of the game. First is the slalom. You've got to ride through this course and go through the flags. If you do it successfully, they turn blue. Sometimes it feels like you did fine and they turn red, which signals that you hit the flag. The first time you play this, it's not too bad, but as you get further into the game, these courses get more and more crazy. And the big problem with that is the ramps. Okay, so I'm just going to go down this ramp. In theory, I would ride straight and then the angle would change when I hit the ramp, right? But no. You actually have to treat these ramps like they're just angled bridges to the next area. You can't ride straight down a ramp or you'll hit the side. You have to turn with it in a way relative to the camera. But only sometimes. It feels like you can actually go downhill a little bit on occasion, so it's really hard to tell what angle you have to be at to hit these. Couple that with the fact that you can barely tell which way you're facing in the first place, and you're in for a frustrating time. If you fall too many times, you run out of time and you get a bad score. If your score is bad, you have to skate around the city to earn more points to buy a ticket to the next event. But if you did win, you've got some cash, and on your way to hurry to the next level, you should stop and buy some more gear. There are 4 choices. You've got the helmet, which will make you stand up quicker when you fall. Pads will make you less likely to fall. Shoes will make you ride faster, and the skateboard will make you ollie higher. If you look it up, there's a ton of different strategies for getting the best scores, like focusing on shoes and boards, and saving up for better upgrades quicker. I'm not really sure how that works because once you buy one, it's sold out for a while. So my strategy was just to go clockwise around the city, gave me less time outside and less of a chance I'd be murdered in the street. So after the slalom, I hurry over to the pad shop and then the jump event. Throughout the city, there are all these obstacles like cars, bodybuilders, frogs, BMX riders, and all this other stuff. And there are more and more of them as you get further into the game. These are actually a good thing because you get points for ollieing over them. Here's the jump event. It's basically like a mega ramp course, but with turns and water hazards. It's a good idea, but the fact that it's tough to tell which way you're facing makes it way too hard. It doesn't even start you out straight, for one thing. And don't forget, this is actual size. So to get the most points, you need to add in spins when you can. Has to be a 360 though, because 180s and 540s will land you backward, and when you push, you'll go the other way and waste time. You can try to squeeze in some extra points by ollieing down banks and stuff, but again, it's random whether you actually get points for that or not. But this one is still probably the best event. Not because it's good, but just because the other ones are worse. So when you finish that, swing by to buy a board on the way to the downhill event. This one is really weird and just kind of conceptually messed up. So there are these downhill banks that drop into each other. You have to ride down, drop to the next bank, then turn. And that's fine, but it just doesn't really make sense with the graphics. If these were actual banks, you could cut the corner here and drop down a couple feet. But the game doesn't actually consider you being in the air. If you turn off to the side, you'll reset. So again, just like the slalom, you can't think about these as banks. This is just an angled path that has a spot you can't turn on. Think of this area like an oil slick or something, and it will make more sense. Later in this event, you'll start getting these extra turns and stuff, and at that point, the strategy for how you upgraded your character really comes into play. If you put too much into your board and you can turn faster, it gets easier, assuming you can keep up with the timing. You turn so fast that it's really easy to over-rotate, but you can get used to it. The event starts off pretty good, but when you get a few rounds into it, you'll dread having to go back to it. Last is the helmet shop and then the ramp event. So the ramp event to me is the worst. So sure, the arcade version of 720 came out in '86, 2 years before I was even born. It wasn't the first game to have skateboarding in it, but I think it was the first to actually try to do a half-pipe event. Skate or Die didn't come out for another year. But this version of the game actually came out in 1999. Street Skater was out, Tony Hawk was going to be released soon. There's just no reason for this to still have that 1986 gameplay. So here's what you do. Push with B, do tricks with A. That's it. How do you pick your tricks? You don't, that's how. You can do inverts sometimes, other lip tricks every now and then. Sometimes you'll do a spin in the air. You can try to push on the flat bottom, but be careful you're facing the right way. Sometimes you'll get into a groove where you're landing tricks to fakie, then fakie tricks to regular. Sometimes you spin with the trick, so keep that in mind. Pushing might help, but it might hurt too. And that's about all there is to this event. If you don't have enough speed to do the spin move, there's almost no chance you'll get the gold, and there just isn't that much you can do about it. The arcade version supposedly has more control options, and you can do a grind, and you can even do handstands, but that just doesn't seem to work here. You're at the mercy of what the game decides to do as you hold one button down. So when you've completed every event, the game restarts you in the middle of the city, and you just keep going. The event courses have all changed except for the half pipe, and that's about it. Keep beating it, and after 4 rounds, you get a game over screen. That's the entire game. So I'm not going to say that I hate 720, but I do hate this version of the game. It's just terrible, even down to the cover art. Just look at this. It's like a dude sitting in the carpet grabbing his board and they just cut him out. They couldn't even get a real skateboarder. And I mean, this game was $35 in 1999. You know, a lot of the flaws with the game are forgivable considering that it was from the 80s. But as a game that came out in 99, You know, if this was my first interaction with skateboarding rather than the Tony Hawk series, I probably would have never started. It's just the worst. So, you know, if I see an arcade version out there somewhere, maybe I'll throw it a couple quarters and see what it's like. But this experience has not been pleasant one bit. So let me know about other handheld games to try in the future. I wanted to do this whole series of handheld games, but this one was so bad. I don't know if I can put myself through that. But if there's any good ones, let me know. Until next time, here's some more videos you can check out. And don't forget to tap my logo on screen right here so that you can subscribe and you can learn something new about skateboarding 3 times a week. Thanks for watching.